And what's up, everybody? It's your boy D from DNC Digital, back with another episode of DNC Radio. This episode is going to be pretty cool because it came out of one of an invitation that I got from the Average Boys podcast on RJV10 Radio. Go check it out. Listen to the archives. I was invited to do this podcast, and it was just me talking, shooting the shit with these guys. And then turns out the main host is the fan of conspiracy theories. And conspiracy theories always interested me, you know. It kind of goes down behind closed doors and behind the curtain. This next gentleman that I'm bringing in is a MMA trainer at the Bad Boys Boxing Gym, and he is the host of the Average Boys podcast. Chris Ponce, what's up, bro?
What's up? It's your boy Crispy. What's going on? My name is okay. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying I don't want to get too racial in these times, but why do they name me Crispy?
Okay, so my name's Chris Ponce, and for a very, very long time, I've been wanting to do some type of I guess audio work or getting involved where I can put my 2 cents into getting my opinion out, because I always like conversations. It's always been something that I've been enthralled by, just like hosting or just talking in general. I did stand-up comedy for a couple years. I'm a mixed martial arts instructor. I've been doing that for about 11 years now, openly, publicly, like doing a professional thing. And it's just something like public speaking's always been fun to me, and it's never really held me back. So I always wanted to do something where I could just talk. And I was approached by a prior student of mine last year named Octavio. He's also a podcast member on RGVTitanRadio.com. He runs a show called The Human Condition. And his radio name is Mod J. And the whole time about my conversations were always like, man, dude, what am I going to come up with, like a cool like radio name? Like, I got to come up with something cool. Like, everybody's got like cool ass names. Like, you know, when people get into Hollywood, they always kind of change their name up to try to sound like it's easier on the words. And it's like the whole like John Wayne kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
I was like, but dude, like Christopher Ponce is like a long name and it does not roll off the lips. Like, Ponce itself is already a weird name. So it's kind of like Spanish, Mexican, into like Spain, European. So it doesn't feel good. Like, you read it and it just says P once. So I always got people that like, they look at my name and they're like, Ponce? 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 And I'm like, no, it's Ponce. Ponce. There's like a weird like, yeah, it's like a weird name to it, right? But I was like, all right, cool. I want to come up with something that's a little bit more fluent and free. What do I do? And I was thinking like, I was like everybody else. Like, I wanted to use like my video game tags, like Captain Ass Clapper or something like that, but I don't want to do something dumb.
That's very cool. That's good.
You know how it was like in fucking high school and junior high when we're coming up with video game tags?
Yeah.
The one that I had 2 of them, which was, I had Flip Boom, which was, my brother named me that for my video game tag because I was a chubby dude and I could do backflips. So he was like, nice. Oh, dude, yeah, you're fat, so you can flip, and when you land, it goes boom. And it stuck with me for a really long time. And then the one that stuck with me even farther than that was when I got into playing online gaming on Steam, I went and I changed my name to Don't Tase Me Bro. So, like, I don't know if you remember that situation where that guy was, there was I forgot who it was. I want to say it was Perry, a governor or something, was speaking at a public event. And this guy came out to protest against him. And then they called the cops to pull him away. And he's there bartering with the cops, like, don't tase me, bro. Don't tase me. And I was like, oh, this is perfect, dude. I want that. So I changed my screen name to Don't Tase Me, Bro. And it stuck. Like, that one's the one that stuck with me for a really long time online. And I wanted to use something like that, but it never worked. But I remember we were just hanging out, and I'm a big fan of the Crow movie. And I'm a big fan of the movie The Crow. And in part 2 of The Crow, there's a scene where the crow is fighting this guy in a factory, and he says, "Spider monkey's a fucking crispy critter." So like, yeah. And I remember because he lights the guy on fire or whatever, and I was like, "Yo, my name is Chris. My last name is P. What am I doing, man? It's right there." dude, crispy. I'm just crispy. I'm a crispy dude. It's just it, and it stayed and it worked. The moment I came up with it, I came out on the show because I think in the first couple of archives, when I went to like my first and second episode, I was just coming out as Chris. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Average Boys. It's your boy Chris. You know, welcome back. And then when I came up with crispy, I got this like face from like Fredward and John Man at the time. He was our second co-host, and they looked at me and they were just like, perfect, man. That is so
nice.
good.
That's the one. That's definitely the one.
And then when we all went to FanFest, when I met you at FanFest,
Yeah.
when we got to interview Gabriel Luna, and I was like, "What's up, man? Like, my name is Chris, and we're gonna do our podcast with you and stuff like that. Thank you very much." You know, he comes out, he goes, "Hey, man, you guys are pretty cool." Like, you know, he kind of gave us the rundown. So he was like, "You know what? Instead of interviewing me at my table, I'll go out to where you guys are chilled out because you guys have a booth, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, that'd be super cool because we have a backdrop and all that stuff because we had it all set up." And he goes, "All right, cool." So when he comes out and we introduce him, you can see it in the video. It's really funny. And I'm like, "What's up? It's your boy Crispy, and this is John Man." And he's like, "Crispy and John Man, Crispy and John Man, Crispy man. We're gonna make you extra crispy." And I was like, "Dude, this is gonna work so well, dude. This is gonna work so well."
Like whatever that meant, I wanted to happen.
I wanted to just stick. It was really good, man. And that's when I felt 100% like that was it right there. Like that was like, if there's anything that was going to be destiny that was going to hit me in the eyes, like that was it. My fucking.
I got a funny story with Gabriel Luna is that I met him on the Saturday, and
Nice.
we were able to get the interview on the Saturday. And my girlfriend was with me throughout the entire weekend. And Gabriel Luna is a tall, dark, and handsome man that
Very much is.
even you got to double take. You're like, shit, this guy's a sharp looking guy. So I go up to his table the next day. He goes, "Hey man, what's up?" I was like, "Hey, is it okay if, you know, my girlfriend takes a picture with you? Because, you know, you left her kind of impressed." He goes, "Oh yeah, sure, sure." And, so, you know, then he starts talking to her and I was like, "Hey, Gabe, chill, bro. Like it's all good. Take a picture. You're good." And then he's like this, he goes, "Nice seeing you again, Sasha." And I'm in my head, I'm like, I didn't even tell him her name. This guy remembered it from yesterday.
Yeah, he's such a good dude, man. Like,
yeah, he was a cool dude, man. A really cool dude. Yeah. So we met that weekend at FanFest. We had a group chat going with Mike, who was handling media and getting us in. And so I just wanted to be cool. I didn't want to be like, oh, that's the competition and like cold shoulder you. So I decided to go up to your table and say what's up and introduce myself. So met you and I met Fred that day, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, because Fred, he was there the first day, but he had to leave early because he had a wedding. So the rest of the weekend, it was just the Rip Shoes guys, which were the guys that were holding our video cameras and stuff. They were second production crew.
Okay.
They're usually at most conventions. Shout out to Rip Shoes, Gil and Alex. Those guys are 100% always at anime conventions. And what they do is they go around and they offer free video and free photos to everybody. They're just dudes who love to go to cons.
I've been into them a few times, and they're on top of their shit. They're always there at every event and getting some cool shots. Yeah, cool guys. And so we always told each other, like, hey, man, we should collaborate.
We should totally collab, man. We're going to collab.
Yeah, and we're like, what are we going to collaborate on? Like, shit if I know, but we're going to get together with something. So it was cool that you invited me a few weeks ago to do your content creator week on RGV10 Radio on podcast, Average Boys Podcast. You guys got to check it out. And we had a good time. And then what was funny is that I don't even know how the conversation started. I went back and I listened to the podcast, but I think you just maybe had it in your back pocket. And I'm just going to ask him about conspiracy theories.
Oh, dude, I love conspiracy theories.
We went on like 18, 20 minutes on conspiracy theories.
You have to really like, if anybody has the opportunity to go back and listen to the episode, you have to listen to the response of the other boys in the shot or in the call. Mm-hmm. Because the moment I mention some shit, they're like, oh, fuck, here we go, dude. Because if it's not me mentioning conspiracies in some weird-ass way, it's Trigger talking about his computer. Like, those are, like, the one callbacks that we always do, man. Like, it's just the weirdest thing. And, like, the reason why I mention it so much is because I am craving conversation of conspiracy. I don't know if that makes sense. Cause
it's always good because it's objective. You can't get upset with somebody's like Trigger. Trigger was so upset because
oh yeah, dude.
I like to entertain the idea that the Earth is flat, just to piss people off, and that's exactly what happened. And I remember telling Trigger like, "Hey, don't you feel like I should believe what I want to believe?" He goes, "No, you're wrong.
No,
Like
you're wrong. No, but you know what? Like, but to me, it always strikes up a weird conversation because of the fact that, like, even with the theory of the flat Earth concept, like that goes with like three other theories, which is the Middle Earth and the Agarthan theory, which
Yeah,
is that which is like in Antarctica, there's an entrance to the inside of the Earth, and like there's reptilians, because then it opens up reptilians, and then opens up like all these different methods. But
the theory that I read was that Antarctica is the continent most south, right, and it's uninhabitable, and that covers the radius of the Earth. And we don't know what's past that because it's so cold and people don't travel there and all that stuff. And that the Arctic Circle plays as the center of the Earth. That's why I brought up that article about the plane that left Japan going towards San Diego, stopped in Alaska on an emergency thing. And it's just a strange thing. And if you look up the flat Earth map, it's on the way. But that's one of my favorites. What are some of your favorites? I know we got the ones that everybody knows about, the JFK, the Marilyn Monroe, the Frank Sinatra working with the Kennedys, and the Sinatra and the Mafia, and Bob Marley, Bruce Lee, Tupac. What are some of your favorites that people might not have heard of?
well, the three major ones that I really look at that really interest me most of the time are that the United States did not win World War II. That's the first one that the United States did not win World War II. So that's the first theory. I'm gonna hold on. Let me listen. We'll get back to him a little bit. The first one is that we didn't win World War II. The second one is a theory that I have, which is the multiverse theory, which is us living on different frequencies.
Past few years.
Yeah. So the multiverse theory is something that I go off of, but it's more in tune to, I don't know if you remember this movie, the Jet Li, The One. Do you remember that movie?
I wasn't a fan of it, no.
Okay, but that theory of concept is where I believe the multiverse theory comes from. But we'll break into that in a little bit also. And the last one is probably going to be the same one that everybody usually talks about when it comes to conspiracy theories and stuff. It's going to be like, of course, like the Pizzagate concept and all this other thing, but it's about Project Monarch. It's about following the ears, the bunny ears or the Mickey Mouse ears, and the concept of the red shoes. Those are the ones that are the rabbit hole in the pedophile world in Hollywood. Wow. And then of course, like that breaks into like the Nexium cults. That breaks into the sex cults that are all around. That breaks into the situation that happened with that kid. What was his name? The one that the Gladiator brothers, the Joaquin Phoenix, his brother River Phoenix. River Phoenix.
Damn, I forgot about River Phoenix.
Yeah.
I know he did some work and then he just kind of disappeared.
Yeah, he got into drugs really bad, and he used to hang around at this club in L.A. And I can't remember the top off my head, but apparently there was a lot of bad things that happened at that club. But it all around, like, it's so crazy to think about, all right.
So everybody's favorites. Do you believe in the Illuminati?
Oh yeah, definitely, dude. Yeah, but I don't think it's called the Illuminati.
Does that tie into the New World Order type deal?
Yeah, definitely, because that would be, if you want to break into the Illuminati, you're going to talk about the Cabal. You're going to talk about Bohemian Grove, which was blown open by Alex Jones, who everybody believes is a crazy person, but he's the only person that 100% was able to get the Bohemian Grove video, which is 100% evidence that shows famous politicians, all part of a cult fraternity, that the Bohemian Grove situation was a bunch of Nazi scientists in the very beginning who would meet up after World War II, and then it turned into all the politicians doing it. But they were all burning an owl, doing fake sacrifices for women, and they had this whole it's a shtick, like a theater shtick that they do, but they're doing it in the park with each other, wearing robes and all this crazy, like, Hills Have Eyes kind of shit. And Alex Jones, who right now the media is going after to make it seem like he's the craziest motherfucker on the planet, busted politicians doing cult activities. So, like, of course, 100% you would believe that all of these politicians would eventually be like, well, we need to pull our resources and ruin this guy's reputation. Because if anything is canceled culture, it was politicians throughout history, throughout history, concert culture has always been politicians. Like they've always like if they don't want some type of information being out, they snuff it out.
Right.
Which is what they're teaching society to do nowadays in all these social experiments where if someone doesn't like what you do, then they get all of their popularity in their communities to come together and cancel you. So, but the politicians have been doing it for years.
Another question I have, and I've never been disciplined enough to read up on it, but why are the Freemasons commercially viewed as something bad?
Because it's a fraternity. I mean, fraternities have always been something that's viewed bad. It's a gentleman's club, right? So,
Right.
like, gentleman clubs have always been looked at. I'm not talking like a gentleman's strip club, but if at a strip club there was another room that only VIPs would go into, people in the bottom of the strip club would still talk shit about those guys because it's not fair, right?
Oh, I understand. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense.
So, if you look at the Masons. It's a bunch of people it's kind of like, okay, so I don't know if you ever saw that video that we got to do with the Rotary Club, right? It was where I got to interview Tim Smith, the guy that's a meteorologist guy.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
We were invited to that, and that's a group of people who they have to make a certain amount of money and a certain amount of money a year. They have to donate money to a certain amount a year to a certain charity. And they have to, there's all these like things that they have to do, but it's not because of the fact that they have to do it because they're part of the club. It's because they get to a certain level in society class that they end up being invited to these organizations. And what those organizations are put there for is one, it usually has some weird theme about that you're helping your community, the parts that aren't helping themselves, and you're kind of like helping the community out. And it also gives you an opportunity as a dumb man's tax write-off.
Right. Yeah, of course.
So
and it helps with your public image.
Yes, of course. So like those are all established from like the earlier parts of those groups. Like, hey, if you donate this, this, and this, you can get this back, and you can keep your money. You can donate to the community and help people out, and you're doing something good because you're building a house for someone that's less fortunate than you. You can feel good when you sleep at night. Right. But you have to imagine that in that organization, there were probably small groups because the thing is deep down inside, written in our DNA, man craves power. Like no matter what, it always craves power. Like we always want to be the next, because we always consider it the next best version of ourselves. Right.
Right. Yeah.
So like right now, if you can bench 220 pounds, your next goal is to get to 240, right? If you're making 100,000 a year, you want to make 120,000 a year. If you're driving a big diesel truck, like you want to drive a big diesel truck with lifted tires and a tow rack or something like that, right? So the idea is like it's constant growth, and it's always talked about as growth. But in essence, it's us craving power. It just through and through, it's just craving the next possible way to be stronger. That's like a sports car. If you like, let's say you're coming up in the world, you got a full-time job, you're saving money, you're doing the right things, and you buy yourself a nice little Honda Accord. 100% those cars are durable, they last, they take care of themselves, they do very good. But then you notice you have about an extra $300 or $400 every month, and you're like, oh man, but that Ford Mustang.
I can do something with it.
Yeah, I could do something. That Ford Mustang, I could do that. You're willing to sacrifice that amount of money to get the next thing because you feel like it's the next upgrade in your life that's going to make your life even better.
To counter that, some people will grow up with not a lot of stuff, and you say to yourself, I worked hard and I deserve this, and I deserve to be surrounded by this nice couch or this nice, not in the means of luxury, but like I was having that conversation. I'm like, look, my doors close without making noises. Mm-hmm. Something as small as that, central air conditioning, something as small as that to other people. I'm like, I didn't grow up with this. I didn't grow up with a nice fridge or this microwave hanging from the cabinets, like things like that. Because you work hard and you start making that money, you say to yourself, I can afford this and now I can live nicely.
Yeah, but that's the idea of like, since you were raised so humble, the value, the essence of the true value of $1 means more to you than the essence of someone who had that dollar all his life.
Fair.
You know what I mean? So,
Fair.
like, yes, those things are luxuries and they're not something that they should be taken away from, but you could do without central air and heat. You did it with all your life, so why get it now?
Fair point.
Yeah,
Came
so
with the apartment, though. I didn't really tell him to do it. I didn't tell him to put it in there. I'm just saying,
but
you know, like,
but it's a nice upgrade, right?
it is a nice upgrade.
And it's something that you can be like, you know what? I never had that all my life, but I have it now. Which gives you bragging points.
It's a self-reflective conversation, man. I didn't even look at it this way.
I know.
Before I start crying and think about how bad of a person I am, let's talk. What got you into conspiracy theories? Because I want to make sure we have, for those 3 stories, I want to make sure we have enough time. So let's start with the reason you got into conspiracy theories as a kid.
100%. This goes back to our conversation that we had on my radio station, because you got to experience 9/11. 9/11 was 100% the thing that got me involved in conspiracy theories, because when I saw the entire thing, a lot of things didn't make sense. And the news was telling me one thing, but everything that I noticed did not make sense 100% to me. Even me not being there, it didn't make sense on the outside. So in your situation is you experienced it firsthand. You got to see it, and you were a part of it inside that box. And what I mean by box is that was your world for the moment, and it's still your world for the moment. But I got to experience it outside the box, which means I have that whole concept where I was thinking out of the box at that moment. And as much as it didn't make sense for you being there as close as you were, it didn't make sense for me watching it from the outside. Like, so those are the main things. Like, in the last couple of days, I've been telling people I was going to come and do a conspiracy show. And I was telling people, like, because that's a real strong question that they're like, dude, what got you so lost in this stuff? Because it's a huge spider web. And I tell them 100% 9/11. 9/11 got me super involved. Why? Because
the biggest point of 9/11 is the whole, how come it didn't fall to the side? Like, how come
well, that's not even the biggest one. The biggest concept is, how did the explosions happen in the subway? You see, and that's because those videos have been removed from the internet. But there was people that were leaving the subway that were beaten and bloody. They were coming out with soot all over their body and damage on their head, bleeding from the face. And reporters were like, what happened? And they were like, oh, we're coming out. There was an explosion in the subway. Now, how did that happen with a building when the planes hit at like the 70-something floor? I mean, yeah, you can think of the concept of the pressure of the planes hitting it and then it rocking the bottom of the foundation. But that means then it would go back to the concept that you just said, and it would eventually fall sideways because the foundation would be damaged. And if you remember, I mean, you were in the city at the time, and you probably saw the aftermath of it. And you probably went and visited when it all got cleared up and stuff. The base of the buildings were still intact. Like, it didn't collapse all the way down to like the first and second floor.
The explosion happened underground.
100%. That was like one of the majors. Then the other one, who owned the insurance or who owned the security team for 9/11 prior to that? That was Jebediah Bush. Jebediah Bush owned the insurance company, which is the people who owned the bomb squad and the dogs that would go check out the building every day, couple of days, because I think in the 1970s someone had tried to physically explode a bomb in the World Trade Center.
It was the early 90s. They drove a van into the place. Yeah.
So ever since then, they always had a bomb squad with dogs go and check out the towers every 2 days or 3 days. And for some reason, they were off for 2 weeks. Then there's the concept of Building 7 that everybody forgets about. Building 7 collapsed that day also.
Yes. Yeah. I remember.
And if you talk to people right now about it, a lot of people just don't even remember that there was a third building. And when they interviewed the guy who owned that building, he said that they pulled it, which means that it was a demolition job. That's exactly the same terminology used for demolition.
You got the other one that went into the Pentagon, and now I was having a conversation the other day about the one that went down in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that was supposed to be the White House.
Yeah, that was supposed to be the White House. Now the story is that passengers overthrew the terrorists in there, but there are a lot of people that believe that it just got shot down.
Well, you see, that's a crazy good call, because of the fact that the Pentagon one wasn't an airplane; it was a missile. Like, I 100%, I 100% believe it's a missile. And the reason why is this: the Pentagon itself is a military building, and it's created to withstand missile blasts, right? It's got 5 layers of building. If I'm not mistaken, the walls that are in it is 5 layers, and each wall is like 15 to 12 feet thick. So it's meant to not be penetrated by like armor-piercing bunker rounds or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. Now, how could a plane get that deep into the Pentagon? Because you remember it went almost all the way through.
It did, yeah. Made
So
a
how
nice
did
little,
it?
I think.
So with that, the argument has always been, okay, cool. If it was a plane, where was the wings? Where was all the debris on the outside, and where was at least some markings that the wings hit the wall? How did the guy take the plane? I think it was like 100 feet or a mile from where the expressway was, 10 feet off of the ground, and keep it there when his pilot instructor said that he was a horrible pilot. And then the motor of the planes were German made, which is like a BMW. So it's all huge titanium metal and all this stuff. They're ginormous engines. But if you remember, the engines were apparently carried off by like 6 guys holding a piece of wood. Like it was like a pallet, and they had the engine on it and they carried it off. How did they carry off? You can look it up on Google if any of the listeners are out there and they check out the size of the engine used on that type of plane. Tell me 6 guys can carry that. Like,
well, why don't people ask these questions?
Because propaganda and media has forced you to think around it. Like that day when that happened, the CIA and the FBI went around to every company and they took every video of the gas stations that were near the Pentagon. Like 100%. Like, dude, that morning, every news company was chilling outside and they were able to catch the video of 9/11, the planes hitting the towers. Why is there no video of something hitting the Pentagon? And they only have one camera, which is the camera that's in front of the Pentagon, that only catches like a second of something hitting it.
The flash, yeah.
Yeah, the flash. It's just like literally it's offset and then it's hitting the wall.
One question I always ask when something like that happened, we are the United States of America. Now, maybe that might be a mismotivated thought or sentiment, but when the Pentagon got hit, why didn't like the floors open and these big badass missiles like come and stop shit like that? I thought we were on top of shit.
Oh, you see, you're 100% correct with that. We are on top of it. We do have, now in the United States, we do have a self-defense team that protects our skies, which is called NORAD and NEAD, right? Okay. Do you know where they're the first line of defense when anything happens in the sky? And the thing is there's documentation that day the planes were on the West Coast when the accident was happening on the East Coast, right? So
right, yeah, okay.
And it only took the planes 45 minutes to get from the West Coast to the East Coast. 45 minutes to get there. It wasn't even very long for them to travel that far in the jets. That day was one of the weirdest things that happened in United States history. The vice president of the United States took over the defense capabilities of the United States. Dick Cheney came up and he took literally control of the United States government for that moment and told those guys to wait. Because he was saying that they didn't know if it was real or not. But that moment, and you can look it up online because the audio is still there. If you look up what NORAD was doing that morning, they were on the West Coast doing drills if someone was going to fly a plane into the towers. That's the drill.
Documented.
That is 100%. You can look it up. They were on the West Coast drilling for if a terrorist was to hijack a plane and fly it into buildings.
And an hour later.
Yeah, no, literally, like a couple minutes later, they were like, we have a blah, blah, blah. Like, he says the code, and the guy's like, is this a drill or is this live? And he goes, no, it's live. Oh, okay. Like, that's the audio of the situation. Like, they were literally drilling the same thing on the West Coast. So when they were given permission, it took them 45 minutes to get to the location. But then that's when the fourth airplane went down in the farm or in the ranch area. Right. That's where because that was going to be the last one. The other 2 towers had already hit. The other 2 planes had already hit the 2 towers. So that was the third. There was a third plane and a fourth plane, and then it hit the Pentagon, and that's when it was released to go after the fourth plane.
And then after all this happened, you just start reading up, and then you fall down the rabbit hole. You find other conspiracies. One thing I wanted to ask you when you were talking about, things being planned and if it's real or not, crisis actors. One of the most disturbing ones I've heard is that the kids in Newport, Connecticut didn't really die. That there is a video of a guy like smiling and laughing, and you recognize him as one of the parents during the press conferences, like crying his eyes out for his kid.
Well, it's super crazy, man, because like 100%, I think the idea of a crisis actor is 100% feasible. Like it's 100% possible that the government could have a couple. I mean, it's like the idea of having undercover cops in drug enforcement agencies and all this other stuff, hanging out with gang members for 25 years.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's got to be the same concept. If they could do it with that, and they can infiltrate mobs and gangs and cartels, they can 100% infiltrate the suburbs, dude. You know what I mean? Like, so there's this idea that's like, I don't know. Even speaking about it just in recent terms, during the protest in, I want to say, not at Washington. Where was the one that was real big? I think it was like Seattle or something like that. There was videotapes. Oh yeah, the bricks, where they were leaving bricks on the corner and stuff.
Yeah, they
like
were
that,
leaving
remember?
bricks, and then there was one guy who started the riot per se.
Yeah.
Turned out to be a cop.
A cop. Yeah, you see, like, so there was actual police officers that were out there that were, and I don't want to say it's just police officers, because that's me literally like saying that cops are evil or something like that. I don't believe that. I believe everybody individually is responsible for their actions, and it's not the mass of the people. I think that's the easiest way for me to put it.
Of course.
But that goes back to the idea of Charles Manson, man. Like Charles Manson was in San Francisco at the time when the CIA was doing psychological experiments on all the hippies and giving them drugs and trying to like break into the Monarch Project. The Monarch Project was a big CIA thing where they were trying to make a Manchurian candidate. So, like, I don't know if you remember the idea of the Manchurian candidate.
Okay, what is the Manchurian candidate? Because I'm part of the people that, didn't fully get educated on.
So the Manchurian candidate, what the concept behind it is that the military uses a set amount of drugs, a set amount of psychological disorders and drills, and eventually is able to make someone that they could control, apparently a living weapon that doesn't know they're a living weapon. So
kind of like Reggie Jackson in The Naked Gun.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's exactly like
must kill the queen.
That's 100% what it is. And the thing is, it's funny because, like you said it, like Hollywood has made fun of these situations over and over again in the concept. So where do they get these ideas if they're not?
No, exactly. That is one thing I always say about every Hollywood concept. You cannot make this up. I don't know how high you got to be to come up with this concept. Dracula, Frankenstein, even Face Off. I remember watching Face Off, and 15 years later, somebody had a face transplant, and I'm like, these motherfuckers. Like,
and the reason why is the reason why is because they're all plans. They're all plans by large cults or large people that want to control the earth or control the planet. I mean, yeah, it sounds weird and goofy when I say it out loud, but like once you start breaking it down and you get it to where people are just literally your slaves, and you're in power. Like, what human being doesn't want power? We just talked about that earlier.
We just talked about that, yeah.
Yeah. Which human being doesn't want? And then you have these people who literally have an unlimited amount of money at their resource, unlimited amount of wealth at their resource, unlimited amount of resource in general of luxury. What else can they crave except subjugation of people? Except people to praise them or worship them as a king. Like, that's the only thing left. I mean, for years, 100%. Oh, yeah. Okay, so let's use this as a segue to jump into the World War II thing that I was talking about earlier.
Right.
Because this makes really perfect sense. So going back to the idea of there being a concept of a new world order, the new world order was literally brought in by the what is it, the Third Reich? I think they call it Third Reich, or was it a Hitler thing that he always talked about? Hitler wanted to make a society of people that were perfect, right? So that's why he went after, which I still to this day am always so confused about why the Jewish community was targeted, except other than the fact that they are hardworking and they have a lot of cash because they save and they're part of the Holy Land and all that other stuff. Like, even so now, like, I think the Jewish community is like literally 100% in charge of Hollywood almost. So like they're a superpower like the Saudis.
They write all the stories.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Like, it's so crazy because like if you break it down, it's kind of like, man, that's so weird. But if that's the case, and you want to break it down in the theory of conspiracy, when Hitler went after the Jewish community and started like killing them, was it on the purpose that he thought that they were the New World Order? or that they were controlling and they were in true power of the world, and he was like, I have to stop them and then build something new. Like, you see, these are the things that always kind of like start.
It's such a small question that it just says Hitler killed the Jews, but it never says why he would, like the motivation as to why. Because a lot of people, we spoke about this. I'm a big fan of pro wrestling. Mm-hmm. And one guy who was one of the best bad guys in the business, Jake the Snake Roberts, he tells you about the art of being a bad guy. He says, and I had an interview with Al Snow that you can find on my YouTube channel.
Nice.
Al Snow says, if I just did something bad, you're like, okay. But once you find out the why, once you find out my motivation, that's what makes me a bad guy. And then I brought up an interview where Jake the Snake Roberts says the heel, the bad guy in the business, needs to feel justified in everything that he does so that you see the motivation and then you oppose it. And that's why you start buying the tickets to see him get his ass whooped. There's an art to that.
Yeah, so, Thanos, man. Thanos from the Avengers.
Yeah, Thanos, yeah. So now the question is, did Adolf Hitler feel justified in what he did going after the Jewish community? That's just the question. I'm not saying it.
No, yeah. I 100% we all believe that Hitler's a piece of shit and he deserves what he got.
Yes.
But so going back to this concept, there is one thing that always resonates in my head, which is the victor always writes the history.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the thing is when we go out there, because the thing is the United States, when we talk about our history, it's always like, yo, look at us, dude. United States, the strong and all this other shit, right? But I guarantee the other countries around the world are like, those fucking assholes. Yeah, I remember this, those fucking pieces of shit.
You
like,
didn't talk about this day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no kidding. It's one of those things that since we're able to write the history, this goes back to the concept of politics is who has the right to write the history. Right? So
only the ones that stood standing. They're the only ones. Like, they come back from a fight and you're like, yo, you won't believe what happened.
Well, this goes back to the concept of like these people that are talking about hate speech nowadays. Like, if the concept of hate speech is going to be a law, who's going to dictate what words are hate speech? Like, when do you get the statute of limitation on someone saying, well, you know what? I think this is where it goes. Because that would be someone dictating what the statute of limitation on hate speech is. So you're going off of someone's dictation on what they believe is the limitation on what someone can take and what can't take. So who in our history or in our world has the right to dictate on what happened with the United States in World War II? You get what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah.
So in our history books, it's written that, Hitler was cornered and then he committed suicide. Right? Mm-hmm. So we, in our minds, we think of like this movie entrance of like Captain America kicking the door down. And when he kicks the door down, there's a dead Hitler with a little gun next to him and he's laying on his side and they're like, yeah, we won the war. Like, and all of a sudden everybody's celebrating in the world because this guy just killed himself. Right?
Yeah. The idea is that he was just too arrogant to get killed by the United States. So he decided to just do it himself.
Only to find out that there is some really strong evidence that there was a submarine in Argentina that was recently like found out in the last like 10 years. And apparently there's pictures of an aged Hitler who grew up and, had a wife from Argentina and all this other stuff, or a person that claimed to be Hitler. And people that had witnessed someone on their deathbed saying, well, yeah, I'm Adolf Hitler. I did all this stuff. And, all this crazy shit happened. Where this happened in the last 10 years. You guys can look it up. If you want to get cool video of it, Tim Kennedy, the mixed martial arts guy, created a show called Finding Hitler because there was a big enough traction for it. And they found a lot of awesome evidence, dude. A lot of awesome evidence. So here we go. Now there's a huge conspiracy theory with evidence that Hitler didn't kill himself.
But then what happened and how did he let us celebrate victory?
So in any situation, how does someone come to that? I mean, you just said it earlier right now where our history book said that he was too arrogant to claim defeat. So that means he would have to have claimed defeat, even though it was told to us by history and media and everything that he didn't.
Right.
But in that birthed this project called Project Monarch. Project Monarch, Project Paperclip. Project Paperclip was when the United States liberated all the scientists that worked for the Nazis. And they all brought them to the United States and helped them come in, and the United States created NASA.
With the Nazis.
With the Nazis. Now Now the concept is, I'm just going to break this down very, very simple.
Go ahead.
Our history books claim that all these scientists were subjugated into doing all of this experimenting. How many scientists in history have you ever heard have been subjugated when they are given the money to follow through with the exact same thing that they've been trying to figure out? How many of them are like, oh man, I'm a prisoner of this. They gave me all this money to keep on working on my science that I've been working on for hundreds of years. How many times have you ever heard them say that? Or have you ever heard the idea of them being like, well, go ahead, I don't care about your stupid war, I'm just here for my science.
Yeah.
And they take the money.
And they take the money, yeah.
Yeah. So the idea was the United States made it seem like all of these scientists were prisoners. But how, if they were prisoners, how were they able to make such huge movements in science when it came to propelling and thrusting, the thruster technology, creating airplanes and creating engines that could burst so much energy that they could help a plane leave the planet? Like, that would only have to deal with if you had a crap load of money and you had the amazing resource. And if you were being tortured, if you were being malnourished because you weren't allowed to eat and they were feeding you bread, there's no way in fucking hell you're going to wake up and do a science project, dude. Like, there's no way. So my thing had always been that Hitler approached these scientists and told them, if you work for me, I will give you whatever you want as long as you help me push this for my military and my world. Because he needed something strong that he could sell to the rest of the world that they would all back him up. And that was that science. So when the United States came in, it was all the space race. It was all the space race. Like
we just wanted to be the first ones to go.
Yeah, we didn't want someone else to look better than us in the space race. Because after that, it was Russia that was trying and the United States that was pushing for it. But Germany were the ones that were actually the ones that were in line to be the first to do the space race. Now, I'm not saying
NASA in English translates into
Nazi,
Nazi
right?
in German.
that would be shit, man. If that's what we've been sitting on this whole time.
But going back to Hitler, if he is out there, why did he?
Out there no more. Like, he's already probably passed away by now.
But if that were true with the men on their deathbed claiming to be Adolf Hitler, what would bring him to say, all right, I'll let them think that they won, and I'll just go over here to the beach?
Well, they let him go. He gets to live life. Like, he doesn't.
So it's like, we'll let you live, but don't ever show your face again, and we'll say that you died.
That's the same thing as what they did to what is his name? Osama bin Laden. Same thing they did to him. Why is that so far-fetched? You remember how Osama bin Laden died?
Yes.
Yeah, well, how did he die?
The raid? I'm hoping the raid.
No, they didn't. They said he died by SEAL Team 6 going in and taking out his whole compound. And then, like, 2 weeks later...
Chris, that's what America believes.
And then apparently SEAL Team 6, 2 weeks later, dies in a helicopter crash.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, which out of nowhere, of course, out of all the times these guys have flown helicopters, it being their major transport, it being the only way that they get on the battlefield, them knowing 100% what to do if a helicopter, it magically goes down and everybody dies. Like, lo and behold.
So, all right, just to clarify, SEAL Team 6 goes in there. We're going to put quotations on the kill.
Yeah, we'll just, we'll put that up there just.
Put the air quotes.
Casually. Now, it's a conspiracy theory anyway.
Are these men that are in on it, or are these men that don't know that the government's just going to wipe them out so that nobody's going to talk later?
Well, that's the thing. If they're going to fake someone's death, they have to have a team go in there and grab him. Mm-hmm. Like that's 100%. So if these guys know that that's their job, then they know. If not, then they don't know. You know what I mean? Like, that's not really on their call. They did their job. SEAL Team 6 did their job. They went in and they got the body or they got the person. right?
Yeah.
But what I'm talking about is, do you remember how they got rid of him?
I read, and there was some that, damn, I was having all these conversations. I guess it was just leading up to this episode
Yep.
that they buried him at sea.
Yeah.
But I was like, but if he's in our custody, why didn't we? Kind of like the way they showed Hussein's head.
Yeah. Yeah, that's 100%. You got it right. They apparently, the people of Afghanistan pleaded with the United States so that they could have the body back so they can give him a proper burial. Where there was people that were interviewed from Afghanistan that were like, yo, we haven't done that shit like in 1,000 years. I don't know why they're asking for that body. Like, that's some fucking old ass.
And us, like, having that victory, why would we even conform to that? Why would we even say, okay, you can have his body back?
That's because of the fact that Osama bin Laden was a CIA operative back during when Russia was trying to take over Georgia. The Taliban
now you're saying Osama met
he was
another.
Well, he was a CIA.
Yeah. But you're saying now, because we put air quotes on the kill.
Yeah, air quotes. Conspiracy. We're doing conspiracy. Nobody believes in it.
We're doing conspiracy. So the conspiracy is that Osama bin Laden shaved his beard and married an Argentinian woman.
No, well, that would be the idea of him just shaving his beard and getting a haircut and being a total different person.
Where is Osama bin Laden?
Well, I don't know where he would be. I mean, he could be anywhere. He could be drinking mojitos on the beach with Tupac.
Is he alive?
See, like that's a hard question because of the fact that like how many people that have done so much against the country that are war criminals. Mm-hmm. How many of them get that luxury where you allow them to take the body back to their country and then dispose of it how they deem necessary?
No.
How many of them have ever been taken to a place where 100% no media, one person and one other person are only allowed to see the body, and no one else can go in there with them?
So what was the motivation? Why did it take us so long to air quote kill bin Laden?
Well, because there were still things to do. Like the whole thing about it. Okay, so if you go back to the first times during when we went to Kuwait, it was all an oil war.
Yeah.
The Bush family was very, very connected into oil. I believe at the time, if you go back to the Iraq situation, Iraq and Saddam Hussein had a bunch of oil, and the United States allowed Kuwait to use a couple of United States trucks to transport oil. Saddam then attacked those trucks, and then the United States was like, "Ah, you broke our shit. We're getting in." Mm-hmm. And that's how we were involved in the Kuwait war and Desert Storm and all that stuff. It was always a really weird concept for all of us when everybody was up in arms about 9/11, and we were like, "Well, we're going into Afghanistan because they've declared war on us," even though everybody in the United States was told that it was Afghanistan because people were celebrating it in the streets.
Yes,
so they gave us a target.
Everybody was like, "Oh yeah, we're going to go after them."
Yeah, because they gave us a target. They literally gave us a target for people celebrating the United States being attacked. Like they didn't really give us a reason. They just showed us a video of people celebrating it, and we don't even speak that language, so we don't even know if they were not just celebrating like a soccer victory. You know what I mean? They could have just like
Jesus, bro, you're like opening up so much shit.
So that concept, like, it took us to war. But the thing is we needed something to get the entire United States behind it because we needed to finance it. We're not going to finance a war that doesn't have anything, but if you get everybody in America behind it, you're going to get people to sign their kids up. You're going to get money. You're going to get all of this stuff. And all the big league politicians are going to buy stock in military equipment and military gear and oil and all this other stuff.
Damn, okay. This is just getting way too deep. There is one more I do want to talk about, and it's your multiverse theory, because that's one of the most interesting ones. Because I want to make sure we give it time, and so we're going to spend some time on this. So, one question that I have is, I know there's such a thing as a premonition when you dream something and it
perfect.
Comes true.
That's perfect. That goes right exactly into my multiverse theory.
And that's exactly why I wanted to ask you. But sometimes I don't have premonitions. You know, premonition is defined as a dream that you have, and later on it comes true. Now, I have dreams, and I remember one vividly. I was running through a forest. I was getting chased by something or somebody, and I look up, and there's like a figure. I'm not going to say like a human figure or a demonic figure. It was like something you put together like an arts and crafts or some shit. And it was
Okay.
made of branches and it was made of twigs. And I remember looking at that thing and I told myself, I've seen that before. I've
Very
either
cool.
seen it before in a dream or I've seen it before in my life. I've had dreams where I say to myself, I have deja vu in my dream. That's pretty much
Very
what
cool.
it is.
That,
And it tells me like, is that a past life or is it me in a different fucking dimension, like
okay, so
in a glitch in the damn matrix or some shit?
so what's really really cool is like the only thing that we talked about this prior before we started when we said we were going to kind of put things out there just to kind of touch base on them. I only mentioned one of them, which was Jet Li the One, which you said was like, it's an okay movie, but it wasn't that great. Which I 100% agree. Jet Li's
Uh-huh.
good, but the concept of it. So I didn't mention anything else, and you literally brought up on your own the major thing that I believe that there is a multiverse. And the multiverse that I believe in is not, well, yeah, I guess you could say it believes in the different frequency concepts, right? Which is that
Okay.
everything resonates at a different frequency. And if it resonates at a different frequency cosmically, we just won't see it because it's a different set of atoms, uh, I guess, like vibrating at a different thing that we cannot physically see, but all of it interacts with each other at once because
Okay.
we all live in the same time frame, right? So all of it, like that would be the equivalent to like you being at a haunted mansion, and at 3 a.m. you see a soldier walking with a backpack and a suitcase or something. Like, yes, I understand that there's a possibility spiritually you would see a ghost, but how does he have a backpack that doesn't have a spirit? How does he have canteens that don't have spirits? How does his shirt, pants, and helmet have a soul that you could see the clothes and not just the body? That's the one thing about ghost hunting that always confused me, right? So how does he bring
Okay.
back
Very,
materialistic
very
items?
valid.
But
Yes. Okay.
but if it was based on the concept of it being a different frequency, and at that moment in time, that frequency resonates at a different frequency, there's a possibility we could see all of that at once. Do you get
Okay.
that?
Yes. Yes, I do. Yes.
Okay. So if we resonate at a different frequency, that means there's a possibility that every concept, every thought, every idea has spiderwebbed into a million variations of ourselves, right? That could cause, that's the whole idea of there being a multiverse, so that every decision makes three separate timelines,
Yeah. Like
right?
I went right, but now there's something living out there from when I
Yeah.
went left. Okay.
So, but the concept is every moment that you live and you want to do something, you create a time fissure. So like right now, me mentioning that sentence that I just said and these words that I've just spoken that I've chosen in my head has created a spiderweb for every word that I've chosen. Do you see what I just did there? I said
Yes.
like 30 words, which caused 30 different divisions of the 30 different words, right? So
Mother.
right now, so right now we just created about 90 different variations of ourselves. So you can assume that in a multiverse that there would be an unlimited amount of numbers of ourselves, unlimited amount. And in
Uh-huh.
that movie, the Jet Li movie, it consisted of him going back and killing every version of himself so that he would be the most powerful, right?
Yeah.
But it never
Okay.
explains about how he creates the different variations. So let's just do this. Let's kind of take the concept of that movie and break it into the multiverse. So let's say there's only 10 variations of yourself, right? Let's just say there's only 10
Okay.
in the multiverse. In the multiverse, let's just say theoretically there would only be 10. That there's no possibility that there's an unlimited amount. That there's only 10 in the multiverse. So from there, what I believe is that sooner or later one of those variations of ourselves gets put in a situation where they 100% feel and believe that they're going to be put in a life-threatening situation, and they pray to God that they need someone to save them. And then apparently most of the time, 80% of the time, the person says, well, I don't know, I blacked out, but I was able to survive the situation. I don't know what I did. And the reason why is because I believe subconsciously the human mind, when we are in trouble, reaches out to the stronger conscious mind variation of ourselves in the multiverse. So in essence, we are saving ourselves. But that's why every time you have these dreams that they feel so real and you
Uh-huh.
witness that the location that you're at seems so recognizable, the people that you're with, you know, but you might not know their name. The details in the place that you're at may be something that looks so detailed, but you've never seen it before. but it's always a life-threatening situation that you're in. Most of the time, it's a situation that you have to make a very strong decision. And
So you're saying our courage is not from us, but a more courageous person in our existence, different frequency.
I say that you have a limitation to the courage in yourself, but sooner or later you're going to get put in a life situation where you pray to God that you need help for that moment. And I'm not saying where you're just like, man, dude, I need $20, man. Man, you got to help me. I'm talking about where you totally 100% give up, where you 100% give up because you have no other corner to reach, and you reach out to the universe for help.
You know, it's funny because it reminds me of one of my favorite quotes, and it's a man is most dangerous when he's cornered, because you're going to do whatever the fuck you got to do to get out of that corner. You're going to get scratched up. You're going to get bloodied up. And that goes into everything that's going on right now with the pandemic. A buddy of mine called me up and he's having some trouble dealing with it, And I told him that quote. And I was like, bro, like when it's easy, you put your feet up and it's easy. Like you don't have to do anything. But when shit happens, that's when you come out. That's when your character is defined by your response to said shit happening. So when we're cornered, I told him, I'm like, bro, we are all cornered. And the ones that come out are the ones, we're going to get beat up. We're going to get bloodied up, scratched up, but we're going to try to, and that's where the quote comes out. Like a man and an animal is most dangerous when they're cornered because there's nowhere to go but forward.
Yeah, it's 100%. Now, it's really, really crazy, man, because it's like you just said earlier, we weren't even talking about it. We didn't even mention dreams. Yeah. But the dream you mentioned is you were probably running through a forest and you were scared out of your mind and you don't know why you were running when you took control of that dream. And then for that moment, you were kind of like, what the fuck? Like, why am I running? Like, what am I doing?
Yeah, and it was, I don't know what the hell it was, but I stopped. And it was like my mind got off of whatever I was running from. And I just look at it and I'm like, I've seen this shit before. Like, I know I've seen this before. And I talk to people and they're like, oh, some people believe in a past life. Like your soul keeps going, just that, you're just recycled, you're still you. It's like saying, okay, I know you now. And, 80 years from now, when we're both long gone, there's another person that has your personality. It's not you.
Stuff.
Yeah. It's not you. It does, you don't remember yourself. You're going to have those dreams like the way I do, or you're going to have deja vu and stuff. But it's just every part of your personality now lives in another person. And sometimes I entertain that idea. Sometimes I believe it. The whole thing about purgatory, that we're supposed to spend X amount of years trying to wash away our sins before we get to heaven. Like that's our last chance. Sometimes I believe we're in purgatory right now. Like,
we could be.
This is our last chance. We're going to see whether we do good or not to see if we end up in heaven or hell, if heaven or hell exists. So now with the whole frequency thing, do you believe in the Big Bang? Like we just showed up, we're a ball of energy?
No, I don't believe in it because you cannot. It's science. You can't just create energy from nothing. It has to be there. Yes. It has to be constant. Okay. So that means even when we die, the energy that we have inside of ourselves will just continue on in a different matter. It may turn into dirt, or it may turn into a tree, or it may turn into another living reincarnation of something else. But it continues.
I like to believe in aliens, not only because it's cool, but if you step back. We can't be that arrogant that we're the only ones out there. Like,
no, of course.
It can't just be us. And there's some people that refuse to believe it. And it goes back to what we said, like all these movies, they come from something. Mm-hmm. There has to be something.
You could even break it down even easier than that and tell them, hey, look, dude, if you want to believe that we are, that there's no other alien in the world or whatnot, and you want to believe that humankind came from Earth, and it evolved from something or an algae or whatever. All of those, that algae and that stuff did not perpetuate on Earth. It had to start when the Earth was created. If you want to break it down in science, it was a rock or something in space that was forming by creating something, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sooner or later, it would create its own gravitational pull. That means if you want to believe in the concept of the Big Bang, then creating everything, you would have to believe that the Big Bang then created the Earth, and the Earth wasn't there already. You know what I mean? But the thing is the Earth had to gravitational wise, the idea is like the flat Earth theory, that the Earth rotates and it creates a gravitational pull that keeps itself together and nothing flies off of it, right?
Right.
That goes back to psychology with the idea of how many grains of salt do I have to put it next to it until it becomes a pile? Like, when do you signify a bunch of grain together into a pile of grain? Like, when does your brain dictate it into calling it a pile? So, like, when did the Earth get big enough that it was circling and then it created into a circular form? You know what I mean? Like, how did everything continue?
Then it started doing the orbit, and then it started spinning on its own axis.
And then and then apparently, eventually, it had to create enough mass that it created its own gravitational pull, right?
Now going back, when we talk about aliens, going back to the multiverse concept, there could be a multiverse where aliens and humans just live together.
Yeah, 100%. Well, this goes back to the idea of what you were dreaming about. The thing is like, okay, there's this really weird theory that people have probably seen online in some way, which it deals with the Hadron Collider, right? Which is where they created the Higgs boson, which is the God particle, which is this thing in Europe that's like, I want to say it's like a mile or 3 miles long in a big circle. And what they do is they fire two light sources into each other, and it creates a smash of particles. And they're trying to study what created the beginning of the planet. There's been a bunch of conspiracy theories around it, being one that they've created time travel and someone keeps coming from the future to sabotage the deal, and that's why they don't get to work so much with it. Someone keeps fucking with the Hadron Collider. That's one of them. The other one is that the first time that they created the first project of the Hadron Collider, which was several years ago, it was a complete and utter failure, and they destroyed the entire universe because of the speed and the thing that they did. But the explosion was so fast that it hasn't caught up to itself. And slowly, through days and hours and minutes, our world is slowly breaking apart by thread with all its physics. Which brings up, like, I think you were talking about the Mandela effect and all this other stuff, right?
Oh, dude, that's another one.
So,
we
like,
need like a whole other episode to talk about Mandela.
So the theory is that right now, the reason why everything is falling apart in our world and all these events are happening and it's just a constant downfall is because our physics are destroyed, because our whole universe has been destroyed. It's just catching up to the explosion.
Jesus.
Yeah, can you imagine that?
This is just too much.
Yeah, can you
I'm
imagine
happy just not knowing shit. That's
right. Well,
you get to live through life not knowing anything, and you're just happy. This is a lot of information to take.
But you know what's crazy, dude, is like, I tell people all the time this. The concept of conspiracy is that it's kind of like a down look, right? Like, you look at people and you're like, oh, you're a conspiracy dude, you're fucking crazy. I don't want to get away from me. I only do real facts and shit.
No, but it's more like you're enlightened. And that brings me, that reminds me. So, I'm, just to peek into my personal life, my mom, had or has, throughout my entire life, has had, we're just going to quote it, mental issues. And, and you know what's crazy though? When I was a kid, things that happened were normal to me. If that makes any sense.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, because I was surrounded by it. So it was just normal. So, opened up in therapy and, it turns out like these were things that my mom suffered from. So, she had a really bad episode a few years ago, and I just flew out immediately to go see her. Now, my boss is exactly like you. My old boss is exactly like you. He tells me that everything is fake. He tells me that he knows how to beat the flu. He just, you and him would have a blast together. Just
it'd be a crazy conversation.
Yeah. So he told me, he goes, bro, your mom has the third eye. And I was like, what? He goes, yeah, she has the third eye. He's like, what if everybody with, quote, mental issues are just enlightened? He goes, did you know that the government put something in the oxygen to control what we see? I was like,
he's talking about those lines that the airplanes fly and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's just like, bro, your mom just didn't smell that stuff. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then
Well, no,
he's like,
that goes off of like the theory of like the fluoride in the water.
yeah,
That was by World War II.
I've
Hitler
heard
was doing that.
that stuff too. And so going on in that conversation, he's like, bro, imagine you see things and you hear things and the whole world tells you that it's not there. He's like, now, are they crazy or are they making you think that you're crazy? And I was like, man, you know, and it makes me sympathize with my mom because I'm just like, geez, like I can't imagine being in her position where she, you know, she sees things or she hears things and we have to say, Mom, that's not going on. Now, does she really see it or does she really hear it? And that's the thing that he was telling me. He goes, what if people with mental issues are just more enlightened than others? Maybe we put the label that they're crazy on them because they see something we don't, but it's actually really there. And that's that when you said that
That's
people,
pretty good.
yeah, when you said that people look down on people who like conspiracy theories, like, oh, you're crazy. But it's like, no, bro, like you need to see this shit. Like you need to see this shit and you're going to be right there with me. Like now I'm going to go buy a bunch of books.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, dude.
you, man, like, and they're going to be looking at me like, what's with the 8 books on Hitler? I'm like, nah, shut up. You should,
You won't get it. You don't get it.
yeah, you won't get it.
There's just like, I mean, it's just a really weird thing because like if you even break it down in the history, like going back to Hitler wasn't even the person who was in like the forefather of that mind thought. He was nurtured into thinking that way. Like all the whole concept of him being.
Okay,
Remember,
I
he
see what
was
you're saying. Yeah.
the reason why they chose him was because he was a good speaker, like because he can go out and speak very well. So he could get in front of. He's like a comedian. Like he can get up on top of a microphone, and he was good. He could perpetuate good.
He was the face of
he was a mouthpiece. Yeah, he was the mouthpiece of the movement. And the thing is this goes back. And anybody, if they don't believe me, they can look up the information themselves. I guarantee they'll find it. They're gonna fucking freak out. At the time of World War II, I believe who was the president at the time? Was it Roosevelt?
Roosevelt, yeah.
Okay. Roosevelt went into a bank here in the United States and closed that bank down. And when they closed that bank down, the reason why he went in and closed it is because that bank was funding the Nazis here in the United States. They were sending money to the Nazis there, and the Nazis were putting their money in a bank in the United States. So Roosevelt went in there and was like, "You're not going to help the Nazis anymore. We're at war with them." And do you know who the president of that bank was at the time?
Who's that?
He was a man by the name of Prescott. That was his first name, and his last name was Bush. That's George Bush's, the senior's father. Now, not to mention that George Bush Sr. was already a member of the CIA at the time. Because after that, he was involved in the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Now, after John F. Kennedy, if I'm not mistaken by my history, I could be wrong because I'm not very good at this stuff sometimes, Nixon came into office.
Okay.
Well...
Oh, I'm sorry. It was Gerald Ford who was...
Was that the next one?
Yeah, he was JFK's vice president.
Vice president.
And he was sworn in on the plane, I remember.
Okay. Do you remember when Nixon came into office?
Yeah, and he had the whole scandal going on.
Yeah, but that was because of the concept also that there were a lot of pictures of a lot of the Project Paperclip members, including Prescott Bush, that were always around Nixon. And a lot of the concept in theory, was that the Nazis and all the scientists that came over that wanted to perpetuate that same concept of them pushing on technology, being the ultimate power, taught Nixon how to be a proper leader and president in the White House and had him kind of like in the same blueprint as Hitler when it came to the way he spoke. Yeah, when it came to the way he spoke and the way he emotionally became when he would do his public speeches and stuff. So like if you go back, some of his mannerisms are very similar to the way Hitler was. But that's because he was taught to be that way by those people.
By the, oh man.
Project Paper. And there's a bunch of pictures. You can look it up where Prescott Bush was always like really close to Nixon.
Wow.
That's crazy, right?
None of them. Bitch.
Yeah, like that's why I said like I was telling you like when we were talking about this a couple like days ago, where you were like, hey, yeah, we'll cover some stuff like some popular things, and I was like, yo, like Project Paperclip, man, Project Paperclip is where it's at, dude.
Yeah, and then you were saying like, I mean, the idea of a conspiracy theory can go on for hours, but every subject there's so much deep shit. Like there's so many layers to a story. So let's
before because I know you're gonna close out soon, but even to
no, it's okay. It's okay. Go ahead.
Even to break it down, the word conspiracy was created by the CIA. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
The word conspiracy, you can look it up. The word conspiracy was created by the CIA to discredit people who ask questions about Area 51 and Roswell.
Really?
Yeah. So even the word conspiracy was created as a propaganda tool to discredit people who ask questions. Now, I believe that everyone is a conspiracy theorist because of Jeffrey Epstein. Like that's when won. That's when conspiracy people won. Because it was the first time that everyone believed, no, there's no fucking way that guy killed himself. And 100% the media was saying he killed himself. 100% everyone realized the media lies to him that moment. So everyone now is a conspiracy theorist. So even in a court of law,
like, they all turn into funny Facebook posts, but at the same time they're playing part. In the conspiracy theory.
Yeah. So that makes me happy because I'm not crazy anymore.
That makes me.
That gives me an anchor, dude. Because then I can go from there and I can like get people to start thinking all these cool things.
I think it's just like I joked around about saying it like I like to be happy not knowing a thing, and that quote is pulled out of Men in Black. As silly as a movie as it is, Tommy Lee Jones's character tells Will Smith's character, like, there's always something going on, but these people just live their lives just by not knowing a thing about it.
Yeah.
And that's where I was. But now, like, when this episode comes out, I hope nobody knocks on my door or anything. But
invite them.
Yeah.
Invite them.
Like, hey, you guys want pizza? Get it? Yeah. Pizza game? But that's another thing no, dude, you're always welcome back because this kind of stuff we can go on and on and on.
Yeah.
But let's just shoot off some questions, and whether it's word association or the quickest answer you can think of. All right.
Go for it.
Who killed JFK?
George Bush Sr.
Pulled the trigger?
No, of course not. There was 6 CIA operatives that were in the area during that time. It was 2 people. One person that was in the building, which was Harvey Oswald, I think.
Right.
And the other person that was in the grassy knoll, because if you look at the videos, people aren't running away from where he shot. They were running towards it. They were running towards where the shot came. So they were going to attack the person. And the day before, there were 6 CIA operatives that were asked to come into the city of Dallas. And they were all put in a hotel and they were all given information. If you want to look that up, there's a documentary on Facebook that's called The Dark Legacy with JFK, the assassination of JFK, called Dark Legacy. Check it out. And
where does Jack Ruby play into that? Was he somebody from the mafia that they had to shut up, and he shot Lee Harvey Oswald before that?
Well, yeah, man, they needed to just cut ties. I mean, they needed to make sure that the last guy who knew, because the thing is, Lee Harvey Oswald wasn't just some random dude. He was a CIA operative. He was hired by the United States government to go out and shoot people. So more than likely, Lee Harvey Oswald will be put in prison, right, during the time of the trial because he shot the president. And eventually he would say something like, hey, look, if you guys don't let me out right now and shut me up with money, I'm going to tell everybody what happened. So what do? You just cut corners.
Yeah,
you just cut them.
So was he the one who shot the head, or was he the one who shot him in the throat?
More than likely, the guy on the second floor would have to be the guy that shot him, like, in the throat. Because if you look at the trajectory, hitting someone at a downwards angle, getting a headshot on that side of the head, and then the trajectory going to the back of the skull, like, would be kind of weird. That would have to be someone that was in front from a floor level, where the throat shot, which kind of goes down and turns into a magical bullet, that one would be the one that would probably be from an aerial shot.
Okay. I think all these questions have to do with big celebrity deaths. How about Marilyn Monroe?
She was connected to JFK. She probably knew some shit that was going on. Plus, in the aspect of JFK was trying to bring the information on secret societies and cults and stuff like that, which was probably the Skull and Crossbones, which is the only Nazi fraternity that comes out of Harvard University, which was also part of Project Paperclip, who had hired all the scientists to be instructors there, and at Yale, who President Bush Jr. actually celebrated and was part of both colleges. Who we all know that guy ain't worth a can of beans when it comes to education. So we don't know how he spent several years in Yale and in Harvard, and was a member of the Skull and Crossbones like his father and his grandfather. So,
Jesus. Okay. Just going back, Bush Sr. was the mastermind behind JFK.
yeah, and he was the person that ran that bank that was funding the Nazis during World War II. Prescott Bush. You want to look him up?
Okay. Bob Marley. Do you feel like if he would have? Do you feel like they killed him to stop him from running for president of Jamaica?
I mean, yeah, I guess in a way. I mean, he was like a free spirit. So, if he would take, I mean, that's the concept of like the Malcolm X theory and like all of these people who are just genuinely good people. JFK even, man. Like those guys, they were going to change the entire world on its head in their own world. And the thing is the people who need it to run a certain way are not going to let their claws out. So that's like right now, like everyone's freaking out with the president, Donald Trump, right? They're
Right.
freaking out because they're saying he's the worst president ever known to man. This guy was never in politics except for 4 years. 4 years this guy has come in and done some crazy ass shit. Where everyone that hates his guts around him have been there for 20 plus years. And they haven't done a goddamn thing right. Now the entire world's falling apart with this guy of only 4 years. Like all of a sudden everything starts getting flipped on its head because they don't like him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So of course they're gonna be like, nah, fuck that guy, make him look bad. 4 years out of all the Democrats in the Senate, they've been sitting there for like 30 years, man. You know what I mean? Like that's nuts, dude. Any of the presidents before that, they all were in politics in some way for years and years and years. But then again, that could go one of two ways. That could be like, well, this guy in 4 years, like since he didn't have that know-how of politics, has ruined the country in 4 years because he doesn't know how it all really works and he thought it was a business. Or it's the concept that all the people that have been there for 20 years that are securing their jobs, securing their finances, and making sure they don't go anywhere except staying at the top, have this guy that came in 4 years and is calling all of them out on their bullshit and says that they don't belong there and they shouldn't be there and everybody deserves the opportunity to be there too. And now they're like, nah, fuck that guy, get him out. Fuck that guy, get him out. We got to get back in charge. Do you know what I mean? Do you get that concept?
I do.
Yeah,
It's funny you say everybody gets the opportunity, but he was making travel restrictions and saying a certain type of people don't belong or a certain type of people are rapists and they're all criminals. All right, just the sidebar. I think I see what he's trying to do when it comes to like immigration and stuff. I just think his approach needs to be coached.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think you'd understand this more. His jargon is more New York street than anything, and it doesn't belong in the politics. Yeah, no, it doesn't belong in politics. But the thing is,
I see what you're trying to say, bro. But like, easy with the words. Like, you need to. Yeah,
and you know it too.
Exactly
because
what
there's
I want to tell him if I ever meet the guy. Like, I get what you're trying to do, but you look like an idiot because you need to have some diplomacy. Okay, how about Tupac? Is he alive?
No, I think that whole concept was straight up. Like I think it was just bad beef between all of those people.
Did Suge Knight kill him?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, not 100%. I mean, dude, Suge Knight ran over some dude in a parking lot on video and then was like, nah, he kind of made me mad. I just run him over. And it's like, dude, how the fuck are you that comfortable with that unless you've done some shit?
Here's a fun one. How is Magic Johnson still here?
Oh, yeah, that is a really good one. That could go off of that he has the money, like the way some of these elitists that do adrenochrome. I don't know if you've ever heard of adrenochrome. Adrenochrome is the blood of children who have been tortured, and apparently it releases endorphins into the bloodstream that make it where the adrenal gland releases all the adrenaline, and it gives people a really crazy high. And it also is almost like a fountain of youth because it's almost like a stem cell research.
Okay. How
Yeah.
about cloning? You're good with cloning?
No, of course not. I'm not good with it. Right now, they're trying to clone beef so that way we don't kill cows anymore, and that's going to be weird as fuck. So, yeah, you can look
Oh,
that up. They're
that's a
3D
good one.
printing.
I know we spoke about it a little bit, and we can talk about it the next time you're on. But shapeshifters, like there's all
Reptilian.
these videos of like, oh, did you see that guy in the back? He shifted for a little bit, and I mean, it's hard to believe, but it's pretty damning evidence.
So there's a crazy theory that there is a group of aliens that live among us called reptilians or the reptilian life and stuff like that. But I tell people there's always these weird concept of good and evil. I mean, you said it earlier that you believe in aliens, so you probably have this concept in the back of your head that humans didn't come from Earth. We were brought here and we're some kind of experiment or we're some type of farm or zoo or whatnot. Let's go back to the earliest time of a known documentation of a reptilian integrating with humans. In the Bible, it states that Eve was given an apple by a snake, and was given the fruit of knowledge so that she would know that she is not a subject, that she could just be witnessed and she will never know pain. The reptile actually handed the human the fruit of knowledge so that it knew it was being enslaved. Do you get that? Now, in the Bible, it states that it was bad because when he gave us the apple of knowledge or the fruit of knowledge, it made us naked and it made it seem all bad that we knew then that we would know what pain is and stuff like that. But if you think about it, the apple literally gave us knowledge. Knowledge, of course, is power. Power to know that we were being hoarded in a garden where when Adam and Eve were casted out, they were casted out amongst the other humans.
Jeez. Okay.
Now, do you get that?
Yes.
Okay, so you remember that. You remember that they were casted out amongst the other humans, but then we are told to believe that Adam and Eve were the first humans.
Yeah.
How does that make sense? Unless they were held and captivated and put in a little place and they were being monitored and witnessed. And then this thing that's apparently Satan that does so much evil came and told us, hey, you guys are actually slaved and there's more to the world out there. You guys just don't know about it. So is it bad or is it good? Because remember, history is written by the victor.
Right.
Yeah, so if there's a concept, yeah, you see what I'm doing there? Conspiracy all the way back to the biblical times. Yeah, so like there's even a theory that the reptilians were here to help mankind.
Okay.
So that's that concept. So is there? I don't know. There's a big theory that they live in Antarctica in a hole in Agartha, which is Middle Earth, which if anybody wants to look up the Middle Earth theory or the Agarthan theory or the reptilian theory. So you'll look that up and it'll kind of make a little bit more, I guess, story sense.
I guess we can close with this one. Did Russia help get Trump elected?
No.
No.
I think if more than anything, there were other people involved that were trying to make it seem like Russia, because they don't do 100% out of the 4 years that this guy's been in office. What has Russia got out of it? Except for tariffs and taxes. Like, do you really think that Russia would literally be like, let's help this dude get elected so that he can put taxes on us when we import shit? No, of course not. Like, dude, Vladimir Putin's doing his own shit. He's already having enough trouble as it is as his own president. You know what I mean? Like I don't believe anything on the Russia gate. Chris
P., thank you so much for coming on the show. You have totally fried my brain. And, you know what? I'm going to leave you with this one because you brought up Adam and Eve. I remember. Okay, so I spoke to I used to go to visit my priest a lot because I was going to therapy and I would talk to him and everything. So I asked him, like, hey, I want to ask you a question that you might not be able to answer. Now, he's not your regular priest. He was in the Vietnam War. He was a nurse for 30 years. Like, he lived a life.
Yeah.
He hasn't been a priest any more than 10 years, I think. And he's like 70 something. So he's lived a life. And he always says, he goes, I became a priest right after high school. He goes, what the hell am I preaching about? I didn't leave anything,
It's a real good point.
So I asked him, I was like, so we're taught that Adam and Eve were the first people here, right? He goes, yeah. He goes, God created them on the second day, right? He goes, that's right. And I was like, so we are taught looking at our calendar that the earth has been here for about 3,000 years around there. Yeah, 3,500 years, 4,000, at the most, because we're in 2020 and there was, before Christ and time like that. So I was like, well, how do you explain dinosaurs that they're dated like millions and millions of years?
Mm-hmm.
And then he asked me, he goes, do you remember when we came up with the calendar? And I was like, no.
The Gregorian calendar.
Yeah. And he's like, before that, we didn't know what a second was. We didn't know what a minute was.
Exactly.
We didn't know what an hour was. And so he's like, when did God create Adam and Eve? And I was like, the second day. He goes, do you know how long that day was? And I was like,
that's a really good theory, man, because I have another one that's based on that too.
Yeah. And he's like, we didn't have the concept of time back then. Mm-hmm. He goes, that one day could have been millions of years. And remember, the Bible is the story of man. So dinosaurs were probably there, and then God is like, nah, I don't like this. Wipe them out. Now on the second day, I'm going to restart it and make Adam and Eve. And I was like, I sat there with my jaw dropped, and I'm like, Father, should you be saying this? He was like, I don't know.
I like him already. Well, check this out. Going into that small concept, my theory was always, okay, so we know that God and Satan both argued, and he casted Satan out and all this other stuff. That was a big battle, right?
Right.
Chronologically, if the Bible was a chronological capture of everything that happened during that time with Christianity and everything, when did that happen chronologically in the Bible? It doesn't never really state when it happens.
No, it doesn't say that.
My theory had always been it's the second verse. From the verse first to the second verse is when that war happened, because in the very first verse it says God created the planet, right, or created the earth and the solar system and all that stuff. But then in the second verse it says, then he looked at the surface and it was desolate, bare, and darkness overtook the surface, right?
That sounds like, yeah.
Now, never in biblical history did God ever create something that wasn't beautiful, that wasn't created on purpose, that wasn't created in despair. That was apparently the only time. And my theory was that when he first created the planet, that was him creating a placement for humankind, that he was creating their own personal place. And Lucifer was angry and was like, well, I don't want it. And during the time of the first day to the second day, however time lapse there was, that's when the war happened and he was casted onto the planet. And what that correlates to is how Satan was already on Earth when Adam and Eve were here.
Man.
It's pretty cool, right?
Yeah. So, Crispy, tell the lovely people where they can find you so they can argue with you and get educated on these conspiracy theories.
If you guys want, I use my Instagram, which is the Average Boys Podcast. All of them are underscore underneath. If not, you could probably find me on my Facebook, Chris Ponce. If not, you can look us up on our like page for the Average Boys Podcast. Or you can go find me at my gym. We could physically argue in person at my jiu-jitsu and mixed martial arts gym, which I am 100% always kind to people who are coming in brand new that want to learn to protect themselves, especially right now. And I know that during the coronavirus, it's very difficult to go out and do things, especially when it comes to physical activity. But that's probably the most important thing right now is to keep your health up, get out and exercise and do something. So even if you don't want to come to my gym and you want to just work out, just get out there and do something. But if you're wanting to learn how to use self-defense, mixed martial arts, grappling is a little bit different right now because of the 6-foot rule, but we are teaching still our boxing and our kickboxing classes. I am at Bad Boys Boxing Gym on McAllen, Texas on Bicentennial, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Thursday. Friday I do my podcast. But we are there every day of the week. If you're interested, we charge $80 for a 2-hour class every day. So you have an instructor, which is myself, and I'm there to teach you every nick and cranny of the mixed martial arts you've ever wanted to know. And we take beginners. Don't be scared. We're not going to have anybody harm you. You're going to come in and you're going to learn the right way.
Yeah, Chris Ponce, you got your 9 to 5. You got the Average Boys Podcast. You got RGB 10 Radio. You got the Bad Boys Boxing Gym. This man is always busy, and he's always educating himself. And if you want to hit him up, it's the Average Boys Podcast. It's DA, right?
DA, yeah, because we went ahead and went with the Devil's Lettuce concept where we have a friend of ours who has the THC show. and I needed to do something that was kind of like in Mark, so I created the dab. So it's all in the whole like I'm not a big smoking kind of guy, but we wanted to kind of keep it in that genre of ideas because we want to relate to a lot of people and we're for everybody being cool and chill. Like I said, I'm not a big smoker. I used to drink a lot, but I'm kind of clean of all that stuff now. I got to look at my age and my health. But before we go, I want to make sure that I let people know if you're interested in looking up conspiracy theories and you want somewhere to start. Of course, you can go back and look up, of course, 9/11. I think Project Paperclip is a little too heavy to look up, but if you want to look that up, I think I mentioned the Dark Legacy video, which is a YouTube video about President Bush being involved with the JFK assassination. But the other one is look up Macaulay Culkin and the Red Shoes, or look up the Nexium cult, or look up Project Monarch. Those are all made famous recently in Project Monarch because of Stranger Things, which is the program that they had put Elle through, which was an actual situation that actually was real. Then there is the Red Shoes, which is a very, very sad story if you really get into it. But if you have the heart for it, it's something that people need to know about. And the last one being following the rabbit ears, is the Disney story of the pedophilia in Hollywood, which is pretty crazy when it comes to it's like you're saying the Illuminati stuff, right? But it's the Illuminati that is Hollywood based, not politics based and not music based or sports based. So if they want to kind of get involved,
there's so much stuff to look up in this quarantine, in this pandemic, and all we do is have time. So instead of scrolling through Facebook and Instagram, guys, look this up and see what is out in the world that's being covered up, and educate yourselves on. Just education is good because now you're just expanding your brain, you're expanding your mind, and you're learning new things. No matter how difficult it may be to learn them, and then no matter how heartbreaking or how hard it is to watch it. But yeah, man, conspiracy theories. Thank you to Chris Ponce for stopping by and talking to us, talking shop about conspiracy theories. My mind has been open, and I hope yours is too. And while you're sitting there, if you grew out a beard or if you grew out a mustache, make sure you check out Can You Handlebar. Can You Handlebar is a cool American-made product company for your facial hair needs. If you grow out a beard or a mustache, you want to get some good beard oil, you want to keep it fresh, you want to keep it healthy. That's the main thing. It's keeping it healthy because you can grow out a beard kind of like I did, and sometimes it just stays crusty, but you got to take care of it. They got beard shampoo, they have beard oil, they have beard balm. I got mustache wax, a cool brush, and a cute little mustache comb, all at canyouhandlebar.com. And if you decide to buy anything, use my discount. Use the promo code DNC Digital for 15% off. That's it for the show this week. I appreciate you guys listening. Make sure you guys follow me at DNC Digital DNC Digital in Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. Take care of yourselves, guys. For Chris Ponce, I am D. This is DNC Digital, DNC Radio. Take care of yourselves and have a great day. And what's up, everybody? It's your boy D from DNC Digital, back with another episode of DNC Radio.